Audio Jungle.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here in Singapore. And before I start the presentation, I tell you that Singapore has a very special place in my heart. I've actually lived here for 3 years. I used to be a PR. And my passion for forest conservation actually started here in Singapore. Because in my first summer in Singapore, I experienced the haze. And I was thinking, my goodness, what's happening here? And then I learned about the forest issues in Indonesia, Malaysia, the deforestation, which is all entirely illegal. And the government has no chance to do anything against it. So I was very shocked, and I got more and more interested in that back in 2010. And I'm very happy that I managed to exit investment banking and start something that is aligned with who I am. So we start with a slide which we really like. We use that at every event, and we're always changing the first word. So, because this is an innovation event, we say that innovation does not work if our planet does not work. We adjust that first word for technology when I spoke at Web Summit in front of 25,000 people, which was an amazing experience. And the quote below, I don't know if one of you has seen that before. It's from Robert Shaw. He's gentleman who made it to the Antarctic Circle a few times. And he basically said what I think really resonates with me, that the greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it. Because for humanity, I think that's a problem we have a lot, that we think somebody else is going to do it. And it's really not the case. And when we're looking at what governments are doing around the world and what corporations are doing around the world, there is great interest and there is great motivation to do something, but governments are slowed down by the fact that they're moving very slowly, and you have to have consensus across a wide range of different minds, and corporations also have to look after their profits and so on. So there are many hindering factors, and if we look at the Paris Agreement or the Paris Accord that was signed in 2015, where over 190 countries agreed to do something about climate change, until now, less than 20 countries have actually ratified to the full extent of their pledges in 2015. And that just shows that the world as a whole is moving very, very slowly. And that's for us a concern. So we've been thinking, what can we do in order to accelerate this and also to give the tools into the hands of everybody who wants to do something about it. We believe that the key to tackling climate change or any social and environmental inequality is to give every person the ability to be part of it. And from what we have experienced so far in the last 20 months is that people generally really want to be part of the solution. So what we have done is we have developed a platform, and I will tell a little bit more about it. We call the platform Reduce, and this platform is integrated with point-of-sale systems, but also with governments and corporations that we're working with, and it allows everybody at the point of sale, when you go into a shop and you buy yourself a pair of shoes, at that point, to make a small contribution, so a micro contribution, that addresses the social and environmental cost of what you're purchasing. And the reason it's working is because the cost is much lower than you might think. So we're very proud that we were able to test and pilot and trial and perfect our solution with Ben & Jerry's. So it was a great confirmation that we were doing the right thing when Unilever spoke to us just 4 months after I had the idea and announced it. So I spoke in September 2017 at New York Climate Week in New York, obviously, the Sustainable Investment Forum. And then we spoke in January after that with Unilever in London, and they were very excited about what we're doing, and we realized that we really hit the nerve. We found something that corporates are very interested in. And just 4 months later, so 8 months after we announced Poseidon, we were live in London at the Ben & Jerry flagship store for Europe. We've been running there for over 6 months, so our platform is now live for 9 months. And we had really tremendous success. I'm going to tell a little bit more about what happened at Ben & Jerry's later. But The reason we're doing this, and the reason we think our solution resonates with everybody around the world, is because climate change is not something that's going to reach us in a decade or in a century. It's something that's happening right now. We're overwhelmed with news and scientific evidence that not only have humans caused climate change, but it has hit us faster and stronger than we experienced. I grew up in Germany, and we had a saying there when I was very little, even younger than now. And the saying basically goes, after me, the flooding. It's a reference to the Bible. And the idea basically was that, yeah, we can do whatever we want to the environment. It's going to hit us at some point in the future, but we're going to be fine. And that's a little bit like smoking. People smoke because they think that everybody else is going to die from cancer, but I'm going to be fine. And this belief that our sins to planet Earth will not be met with terrifying consequences has led the world to continue living in a way that really exploited the planet. But we know now that we only have 12 years left. So if you don't know what I mean with the 12 years, there was a report that was released a few months ago. It came from the IPCC, which is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And that report was done by an international group of scientists that were paid for by United Nations participants. So it falls under the UNFCCC, which is the United Framework Convention on Climate Change. And they looked at different markers around the world, how climate change is affecting economies and so on, and also what impacts it's going to have on all of us. And what they found is that we're actually much closer to a point which is called runaway climate change, at which point it's going to be very hard to reverse the effects, and we're only going to be firefighting, just going to be trying to catch up and repair the damage that is then happening. And in about 12 years, unless we're addressing it now, so we have a few years to still do something, we're going to have drastic changes globally that will result in the extinction of many species that are not even endangered today, but also in migration of not only animals, but humans as well. So we know what happened in Europe when Syrian refugees moved across different European countries, and that was only a couple of million. It caused havoc. It caused economic problems. It caused social problems. There's even new political parties that rose up that said, like, we're against immigrants, and then they were voted. They got a lot of votes. It was very stressful in Europe. If we're putting that into perspective, we think that there's going to be a few 100 million migrants due to climate change. These are a few facts. I'm happy to share the scientific reports where the numbers are from. So we're basically saying that when we're looking at the current greenhouse gas emissions, not where we should go or where we would like to go, but really what's happening and what's been going on the last few years, we're looking at a warming of 4.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. That warming of 4.5 degrees will result in the extinction of over 60% of all animal and plant life in the Amazon by 2080. And in other areas of the world, worse than Africa, extinction of up to 90% in certain areas. If that doesn't worry you, then I don't know, we should probably not continue talking. It worries me to the core. I think it's the greatest existential threat that we have ever faced. We're also seeing that the greenhouse gas emissions in 2018 actually have gone up. They went up by almost 3%. So when I'm going to conferences and people say to me, oh, we don't need your solution, or we don't need a solution at all, it's all going to be fine because we're all moving towards electric cars, and we're moving towards renewable energy and so on, I say, yes, we do, and that's great, but we're getting there too slowly. We have to stop damaging at the same time as we're repairing. The analogy I like to use is, if you walk into your kitchen and your kitchen sink is overflowing, then yes, you can spend the next few days or weeks mopping up the floor and coming up with newer and cooler ways to clean up the water from the floor, or you could just go up to the sink and close the tap. And we've been just continuing to clean up the water without addressing the issues we're having, and that has to improve. The other two numbers that I've put up here is the rate of deforestation. That usually shocks people. It shocked me a lot. We're cutting down 27 soccer fields per minute. That's the rate of deforestation. That's about 500 trees per second. I find it absolutely shocking. And another number, which is a financial number, is even if we only get to a warming of 2 degrees, so we're currently on track to get to 4.5 degrees, but if we only have a 2-degree warming, we're looking at an economic damage before 2100 of $69 trillion. So what we've been thinking is, okay, clearly society doesn't change as quickly as people would like it to change. Clearly governments, corporates can't address it quickly enough. They will eventually, and humanity has a lot of genius minds working on the problem, and there are some companies that came up with carbon capture technologies to take carbon out of the atmosphere and create bricks or create materials out of it. It's fantastic, and they're all going to work. But they're about 10, 20 years away before they can scale properly to address the problem. Once we get there, it's all going to be fine. But what do we do until then? So we believe if we can adjust the current world without making too many big changes, without expecting that every person changes their lifestyle completely, if we make small changes that are not painful, we believe that we can solve the problems we're currently having in the social and environmental space. So when we looked at the retail space globally, we realized that actually with a value of around $29 trillion, we can find ways to channel funding from the retail market to social and environmental challenges and address social and environmental costs at the point of sale during consumption. So based on what we've seen so far in the last 20 years, in the last 20 months, I wish we had 20 years, but the last 20 months we've been running, we realized that if we only capture 2 to 3% of the retail market, we can actually stop deforestation globally, which is the first challenge that we're looking at. This is really exciting because for retailers it's a very big opportunity. Consumers more and more look for social and environmental responsibility. Millennials, generations after that, but any other generation as well, are very interested in making sure that our planet continues to work there as it does right now, right? It's also a big opportunity for corporations because investors and shareholders more and more demand social and environmental responsibility. It actually poses a big risk for a corporation not to address climate change. We know some countries have imposed carbon taxes, some countries require corporations to offset their carbon emissions, and there are many other costs that are being looked at. So for a company that is internationally active and has an impact on the environment, it is actually a risk that needs to be addressed, because if you're operating in a country and that country now suddenly imposes a tax on carbon and you haven't looked at your environmental impact, then that actually causes a big financial problem for a company. So there are many reasons why providing a solution that addresses social and environmental problems is in great need and people are interested in it. So what we have done is we've taken carbon credits, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what they are, and technology and people like you to create an accessible and scalable solution for climate change. Carbon credits are basically financial instruments that allow us to channel funding to projects that result in in our case, protection or conservation of forestry. So anything we do in life has an impact on the environment, right? Just walking around has an impact, eating. But whenever we produce something, when we produce a shoe, or we drive a car, or we fly somewhere with a plane, obviously we're having very direct impacts on the environment. Now, the idea is, I like to always talk about cars. We want to get to a world where every car is an electric car, and everybody drives electric cars, and driving doesn't cause any greenhouse gas emissions. But we know that that's going to take some time. So let's say it's going to take, maybe if it's accelerated, maybe it's going to be done in 2-3 decades. But from now until it has happened, we need to do something. We can't just sit around. So then the idea is, if you drive a car for a while, you have a certain amount of carbon emissions. If you now go and you ensure that somewhere else in the world carbon is not emitted, so you reduce carbon emissions somewhere else, then at the very least you can say, okay, my actions have caused carbon emissions, but my actions have also caused a reduction of carbon emissions, so net, my actions actually balance out. So it is obviously not the solution, and it's obviously not, we're definitely not saying to the world, hey, just continue polluting the world and then also do some good things. This is not the absolution. It didn't work for the church, and it doesn't work in nature. We need to work towards changing the way we interact with the environment. We need to find ways to basically live in harmony with the planet, and we know that we're moving towards that. But right now, what can we do? And this is what we can do. As I said, we're cutting down 500 trees per second. That has to stop. An average tree in an Amazon is about 400 years old. That's an average age. Some of them are even 1,000 years old or older. So that's hundreds of years of carbon storage. The problem with cutting trees, with deforestation, is the vast majority of deforestation happens for things like palm oil plantations or illegal mining and so on and so on. And the way the forest is cut down is, it's usually called slash and burn. They cut the trees and they burn them. And then you've got hundreds of years of carbon sequestration, which is the scientific term for storing the carbon. So hundreds of years of carbon that have been stored in the trees are released back into the atmosphere. Collectively, deforestation around the world, depending on which source you read, is about 15 to 20% of all greenhouse gas emissions. So if we can stop that, we can make a significant contribution towards stopping global warming, which is a very big contributor to climate change. So the way you do that is you understand the communities that cut down the trees. Because they don't cut down trees because they feel like cutting down trees. They cut down trees because they want to earn money. So what we basically do is we go to these local communities and we tell them, hey, you know what, we're going to teach you how to grow cocoa, or how to grow chocolate, or how to grow coffee. And you can do that in harmony with your forest, and you don't have to cut anything down. And they get excited, because obviously they don't want to cut down their trees. If they have an alternative, they go for it. Carbon credits allow us to move funding to these projects, and then effectively they reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So we take these projects. We have a big project in Cordillera Azul, where we've protected over 20 million trees so far, an area that's about 24% larger than New York City. One of the coolest things I've done in my life. And that project is a very high impact project. It covers actually 13 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. If you would like to know more about that, I'll be happy to talk to you after the presentation. And we take those carbon credits and we put them onto our technology platform. So we created a platform that uses both blockchain, and that's live, and AI, that's currently in development, that's not live yet. But the end result will be that on our platform, we will use artificial intelligence in order to, on the fly, measure and qualify and quantify the carbon footprint of any purchase on the fly, and with another AI on the fly select the right offset project that is interesting for the person that wants to do the offset. So I'll give an example. If you produce a shoe in Italy, and you buy it in Italy, then that shoe has a carbon footprint. And the carbon footprint is around 10, 20 kilos, depending on what kind of shoe it is. So 10, 20 kilos of carbon dioxide that's being emitted into the atmosphere. But if you buy the same shoe in Tokyo, then it had to be transported there, so now you have to also add the cost of the transport on it. So a lot of calculations for millions of products being sold around the world. AI is a fantastic solution for that. So what we already have, which is live, is our blockchain platform. So we've integrated a platform with point-of-sale systems, so directly at the counter when you go and you pay for a product. And in real time, we're using the Stellar blockchain. We can do transactions in less than 3 seconds, and at a cost that's 0 point, lots of zeros and a number at the end. Very tiny, we don't even account for that. And we can do transactions that allow consumers to make a purchase, make a micro contribution as part of that purchase, and by the time they've put their wallet back into their purse or into their jacket, they get a notification on the phone saying, hey, you've contributed to this and this project. And it's really exciting because one of the big problems with philanthropy is that you want to do good things in the world. I think this is a very natural drive that we want to do good things. It makes us feel great. So when you traditionally give money to philanthropy, you have no idea what happens with your money. You don't know how much is going where, and you don't know where it's going. So the feedback that we've received from consumers is that it's really exciting for them to see exactly where the money has gone, what impact it has had individually for them and collectively with the people they worked with. What we can also do with blockchain is we have a token called Ocean. I'll tell you a bit later why our company is called Poseidon and why the token is called Ocean. You see there's a lot of thinking towards the sea there. With the Ocean token, we can do these real-time settlements, so the immediate accounting for the social and environmental responsible purchases. And we can also do a real-time retirement of carbon credits, which is interesting. That's a little bit a side story. Carbon credit markets at the moment only operate in tons. So if you want to buy a carbon credit, you have to buy a multiple of a ton. And the process is very, very very slow. So you have to do registrations and also sorts of other checks. It takes a while. With our blockchain platform, we're able to transact grams of carbon, and we're able to transact them in seconds. Why would anybody want to transact grams? Well, because a banana has about 80 grams of carbon, and a pair of shoes has about 20 kilograms of carbon. So attaching a ton, one certificate, to each purchase just doesn't make any sense. It's an overkill, and then it becomes too expensive. What we have created is basically a solution that gives everybody real-time information, real-time understanding of the impact they have made, the good they have done in the world, and also the good that other people in the network have done. So you will see collective impacts, you will see the projects that are being supported, and you understand, with bidirectional traceability, you understand which carbon credits went to which emission and what money went to which project. So it's very exciting to have this transparency and this traceability. And to shed a little bit more light on how we're doing the integration from a functional flow, so Sally up there, I just called her Sally. Hi, Sally. So Sally goes into a store and she buys a pair of shoes because she's going to a party and she needs a new pair of shoes. Those shoes were produced in a factory, and just this one pair of shoes caused an emission of 20 kilograms of carbon into the atmosphere. When Sally makes the payment for the shoes, and there are now different strategies, she either just pays the price of the shoes and the offset is already embedded, or the retailer offers her that she can pay a bit extra if she wants to. Our preferred solution is actually a combination, and that's what we've done at Ben & Jerry's. At Ben & Jerry's, you walked into the store, you bought a scoop of ice cream, and Ben & Jerry's would tell you at the checkout that, hey, we partnered with Poseidon, and we're giving a micro donation towards forest conservation. Would you like to join us? So at the point where Sally, in this scenario, would have bought her shoes, the price she saw already included the offset, and at that point the shoe already contributed to forest conservation. It already was climate action. And she then has the opportunity to give more. I'll just quickly walk you through this, and then I tell you what we found out in the last 9 months while using the platform. So if Sally goes into the shop, she makes a payment, some of that money goes to purchase ocean tokens. The settlement of the actual money takes days, 24, 48 hours, sometimes even longer. If you swipe your card in a shop before the retailer gets the money and then can give the money to us, that's several days. In fact, in order to make that scalable, we invoice retailers once a month. It doesn't make much sense otherwise. So that wouldn't allow us to move money directly to forest conservation projects. So what we do is we buy the carbon credits up front, but in order to do the accounting properly and in order for us to be able to know precisely how much we're going to invoice the retailer at the end of the month, we have a token. So at the end of the month, we go to the retailer and say, you have transacted X amount of tokens at this and this price, which we have fixed, and that is what we invoice them for. So a part of the payment goes to purchase tokens. We had our footprint AI that knows that the shoe had 20 kilograms of CO2. The token then buys carbon credits, which come from an emission reduction project. And this all happens within 3 seconds. And Sally then has a mobile phone where she gets a notification that her purchase is climate action, and it has supported a project in Guatemala, Kenya, Congo, or one of the other areas where we're active. At Ben & Jerry's, what happened was very exciting. A scoop of ice cream at Ben & Jerry's is £3.20. I always thought that's very expensive until I realized how much Ben & Jerry's charges here in Singapore, which I find shocking. But the carbon footprint, and I'm going to ask the audience now because I find it super exciting. You're probably going to get this wrong. I got it wrong. I don't know anyone who got it right so far. Certainly Ben & Jerry's got it wrong because they almost fell off their chairs when we told them. I hope you understand the principle of the offsets. We have a forest conservation project, we pay money to run these projects there, and you have an emission when you buy something, right? Okay. How much do you think do you have to pay extra to offset, and this is what we push for offsetting more than the carbon footprint. So typically 150 to 200%. At Ben & Jerry's it was 150% of the carbon footprint. So you pay £3.20 for a scoop of ice cream. How much do you think would you have to pay more to make that purchase climate action, to offset 150% of the climate impact or the carbon footprint impact of that scoop of ice cream? Anybody? Just throw a number, you're going to be wrong anyway. 2 cents? Or 2 pennies, yeah, okay? At least double, okay? No ideas? Okay, let's look at a different example. You buy a pair of shoes for $189. $189 pair of shoes, leather, cows, you know, all that stuff. How much you have to pay extra there? Anyone else? Just throw a number. 30% more? Anyone else? 0.2%. So we have a range. It's great because this is exactly how it is. People don't know. We don't know. We understand calories on a Mars bar better than we understand the social and environmental impact that we're having. And that's really sad because, okay, food is great and it's important, but if you eat the wrong food, you're still kind of getting through life. But if you're destroying your environment and your fellow citizens, then you're not getting through life. So we should really, from the first years of our life, have been taught social and environmental costs, and we haven't. And that's one of the big problems that we're addressing. So, a scoop of ice cream, it's a fraction of a penny. It's less than 1 penny per scoop of ice cream. Even Ben & Jerry's didn't know that. They knew, Ben & Jerry's are a fantastic company. That we trialed with them was a dream come true. Ben & Jerry's has been looking at social and environmental responsibility long before the rest of the world woke up and realized that it's actually a thing. They really understand it better than most companies, but even they didn't think about what is the carbon footprint of 1 scoop of ice cream. Why should they? They never had a way to address 1 scoop of ice cream. So less than a penny for a scoop of ice cream. When we said it to Ben & Jerry's, they said, oh my God, we cover that, it's a no-brainer. So they reduced the internal price, the sales price of the scoop of ice cream from $3.20 to $3.19, added the penny, it was $3.20. So for the consumer who came into the store, same price, no change, they paid £3.20, but at that point already 150% of the carbon footprint were addressed and were channeled towards a forest conservation project in Peru called Cordillera Azul. We're also live at Vivo Barefoot, which is minimalistic shoe manufacturer, and we're live at 2 stores in Switzerland, in Zurich and in Lucerne. $189 shoe, and obviously it's different from shoe to shoe. It's different whether it's a leather shoe or synthetic or whatever, but $189 pair of shoe has a carbon footprint cost, and that's again about 150% of the offset, 23 cents. We're also live with a car manufacturer, BAC. It's a luxury car, it's a race car, it's a boy's toy that makes absolutely no sense, it's just for fun. But it's a car that costs 200,000 pounds. Offsetting double of the carbon footprint of the entire production cost, all the material and the production and everything up until the point of delivery, is 200 pounds, 0.1%. It's an absolute no-brainer. Absolute no-brainer. Anybody who pays 200,000 pounds for a car and is then not able to pay 200 pounds to offset the environmental footprint shouldn't get a driving license. The reason our solution works is because the cost is small enough to not be painful, but the impact collectively is big enough to really matter. We have currently 3 live clients on our platform. We have a pipeline of about 25 clients that we're working with at the moment. We're a little bit slowed down with our scaling due to finances. We're currently raising funds, but we're live at these 3 at the moment. So Vivo Barefoot is the shoe store in Lucerne and in Zurich in Switzerland. We're currently working on expanding to their online store, which is also a high traffic online store with a lot of sales. We're live at BIC, as I said. Double the carbon footprint is being offset there. And we're working with Liverpool City Council, which is very exciting. They're becoming the first climate positive city council in the world. And we're working with them and with companies in Liverpool to, well, they have an ambition to become the first climate positive city in the world. And we're working towards that. And the ambition is to do that by 2020. We'll see if we're going to manage that. It's obviously a very big task. But we have clients. We have a platform that has been running for 9 months. It works. Clients love it. At Ben & Jerry's, our numbers show that 73% of consumers that were offered the opportunity to participate in this have actually gone above and beyond. They give more. So a scoop of ice cream is £3.20. People come in, buy 3 scoops of ice cream for £9.60, and they say make it 10, round it up to 10, 40 pennies. Doesn't hurt at all, and it's their decision to make it that way. When you think about the fact that 1 scoop had a carbon footprint cost of less than a penny, so 3 scoops are somewhere around 1.5, 2 pennies, and then a consumer gives us 40 pence. That's a massive multiplier. And that is why I said earlier, if we capture 2 to 3% of the global retail market, we can stop deforestation globally. And that's not a dream. We're live, we're doing it, and it's absolutely working. We have a vision to grow our blockchain platform, and I know a lot of you came here to hear about blockchain and about the technology, but I speak much more about the application of the technology, because a very clever person from the Wall Street Blockchain Alliance, he said, and I'll always remember that, he said, blockchain is going to be successful when we stop calling it blockchain. And that's really how it is, right? Blockchain is an evolution in data storage. We started with putting data on stones, then we put it on paper, then we put it on lots of other things first, but then at some point we ended up on disks, and then we ended up on hard drives, and then we use databases, and now we have blockchain, and in a few years there's going to be something else. So I think what's much more exciting than the technology is how you can use the technology. And the big advantages of blockchain, when it's applied in the right way, is that it offers full transparency, full traceability, lightning fast transactions at a very, very small cost. Nobody here would send a friend in another country 10 cents. Because you go to your bank, they'll probably laugh when you say you want to send 10 cents. And then the next thing they tell you is that it's going to cost you $2 to send 10 cents. So nobody is doing that. But with blockchain technology, all this is now possible. And our integration to the retail sector, where we're now able to transact grams of carbon at literally no cost, is only possible because of blockchain technology. I said earlier that carbon credits are traded in tons. The reason they are traded in tons is because there's so much effort in making a carbon credit transaction that nobody would transact smaller than a ton. Even a ton, nobody would do. People transact hundreds of thousands of tons or millions of tons. It doesn't make any sense to do it differently. So we started, and I'll just check the time. Okay, perfect. We started with addressing the carbon footprint. I've been talking a lot about carbon. I've been talking a lot about deforestation. I've been talking about the climate impact we have with greenhouse gas emissions. But for us, that's only the beginning. So we started with deforestation because deforestation causes a lot of additional pain. We have the destruction of biospheres, so biodiversity is affected. We have local communities that are affected. So all the carbon credits that we're purchasing, they are certified to VCS, it's the Verified Carbon Standard of an organization called Verra, one of the best standards in the world. And our carbon credits are also certified to CCB Gold level, which is the Climate, Community and Biodiversity Standard. So for us, it's very important that we make sure that our projects support local communities, help with biodiversity, and just address a more holistic solution. So we did that because forests are just so important for the world. Rain patterns, weather patterns, and so on and so on. But in fact, carbon is not sequestered exclusively on land. It's actually far from that. 80% of all the carbon storage in the world happens in the oceans. And from that 80% that is being stored in oceans, actually half of that, so 40% of all the carbon storage in the world, happens in coastal ecosystems, mangroves, seagrass. And that is our next focus. After forests, we're going to go and support projects in coastal ecosystems. Countries like Bahrain, for example, are very scared about the impacts of climate change because rising sea levels will threaten a very large part of Bahrain, because Bahrain is an island state. Yeah? Many other parts of the world as well are under great threat. If the ocean rises just by half a meter, it will make large parts that are currently inhabited inhabitable. So forests first, mangroves and seagrass next, both of that is still our CO2 area. So the Reduce platform, the first product there is Reduce CO2. Quickly after that, we're going to expand to fresh water, we're going to expand to plastic, and we're going to expand to electricity. Because even if your electricity is 100% renewable, if you're using it, it needs to be created. So ultimately, you want to make sure that everything we do around the world uses as little as possible and as renewable as possible. So with the Reduce platform, we want to address all these environmental costs, all these uses of limited resources, and by choosing the right projects, also the social costs that are attached. And thereby we want to create, with the Reduce platform, a 360-degree solution that will empower everybody to participate in social and environmental responsibility in an entirely new way, without pain, at relatively small costs, and in a way that's also going to be fun, because we're going to create gamification platforms. We're thinking about a virtual world where you can walk around and the whole world is doomsday scenario, the way it's going to look like if we don't fix it, and then with every time we do something, then slowly trees are starting to grow. And we have all sorts of wild ideas, and it's going to be fun, and it's going to be engaging, it's going to be social, people are going to be able to share it around the world, people are going to be able to interact with other community members. We also want to do a social platform that allows consumers like us to interact with people on the ground, people in the Amazon. There are communities there that you would never meet otherwise. And imagine that you can communicate with them. They can post pictures of the trees that are still there because of you. You can see the children run to school in the middle of the Amazon. It's going to be exciting. We're having a lot of fun already. So we're a really passionate team. We're about 12 people that work full-time, and we have 9 strategic partners that are working with us on making Poseidon a reality. Our 12 full-time members work really full-time, including weekends most of the time, and poor Cesare gets calls from me at like 1 in the morning, and sometimes he's silly enough to pick up, and then we talk for 2 hours. This is not a business for us. This is really even more than a passion, it's a calling. Every one of the 12 people that work on this truly and deeply believes that this is our last chance for survival. Because we really think that on the current path, humanity in 100 years might not be around anymore, and we need to really drastically change. We have about 40 additional members of staff that are on a contract basis that work if and when required. We've got like about 10 people in the marketing and branding department that work with consumers on communication, which is very important. We've got some IT groups that work with us whenever we need something done very quickly. We have especially climate specialists that have been in the climate space for a very long time that help us. And we have also specialists in the governmental space, because we're interacting with a lot of governments and trying to bring them our solution as well. We have 9, actually 10, but I corrected to 9 because the 10th is not up here. So we have 9 strategic partners I can tell you about, and 10th one that I will tell you another time. But we've got Ecosphere Plus, which is the largest carbon credit trader in the world, and they work with local communities very, very professionally. In fact, Lisa Walker, the CEO of Ecosphere Plus, started at 2 petrochemical companies in the world, the first sustainability initiatives. So we've got real rock stars in our midst. As I said, we're very passionate. MME is, together with SGInnovate, our two legal teams. MME are probably the best you can work with in Europe when you want to work on blockchain technology. They have done the legislation for the Swiss government, have been worked with them. They've worked with the government of Malta and several other governments. The real in-depth knowledge. SGInnovate has the local knowledge in Malta for us. Beyond is one of the best community management and I'll say blockchain branding companies in the world. I already spoke about BAC, who do this gorgeous single-seater supercar. Liverpool City Council, our rock star city council that's working with us on sustainability. We've got Carbon Trust. I explained a few times earlier how we're offsetting the carbon footprint of products and purchases, but before you offset it, you need to understand what the carbon footprint is. And we're doing that analysis together with Carbon Trust. They're the spin-off of the UK government. They're the largest and most trusted party for analyzing carbon footprint. And when we go to a customer, it's not a quick thing. It's not like, yeah, you have about 20 kilograms of carbon in a pair of shoes. No, it's a process that takes quite a long time. In the case of BAC, it took them almost a month to fully understand the carbon footprint of a car. They look at everything. What material is used? Aluminium. Where does it come from? Because aluminium from one country has a different carbon footprint than aluminium from another country. They do all this in-depth analysis so that when we go to a consumer and we say that you have to pay 23 cents more to offset 150% of the carbon footprint of a pair of shoes, we know for a fact that that is exactly the cost, and that's very important. And Stella is the blockchain that we're working on. So we have really rock star partners, and they allowed us to scale and to grow our platform as quickly as we did. So where we are right now, so we've been running for about 20 months, entirely bootstrapped so far. We had a few small contributions. We have a token sale that we've run a first public one very quietly because I wanted to make sure that the software really works. I was a bit nervous about that. Doing all the KYC and AML and all the right processes is very complex. We worked with 6.6, IT consultancy out of the UK that have been working with the UK government on many different initiatives. So we know that the KYC and AML, so the Know Your Customer and anti-money laundering processes that we put in place for the fundraising are really top-notch. But we've done it very quietly to make sure that the software works in the first round. So we raised very little. So far, almost entirely bootstrapped. 99% or so is bootstrapped. We've built a platform that really revolutionized carbon markets, and we have all intention to do the same for fresh water, for plastics, for electricity, social and environmental 360-degree solution. We're growing very quickly, and what we're doing right now is we're running a fundraiser, a private one, where we're talking with VCs around the world, with private individuals, and also with companies. We're talking to some petrochemical companies that showed interest in not only investing, but also in or participating in our fundraiser and purchasing our tokens, but they also showed interest in rolling our platform out to their petrol stations, which is incredibly exciting. Wish I could tell you more about that, but that's not public yet. So we're doing the fundraiser for a very simple reason. We want to grow our sales team around the world, grow our technology team, and scale the solution as fast as we can, because as I mentioned earlier already, we don't have much time. And we know that our solution can really make a big difference here. A couple of numbers about us. So we've been running just over 20 months. We have 25 clients in a pipeline. We have so far protected over 20 million trees in Cordillera Azul in the Peruvian Amazon, which represents about an area that's about 24% larger than New York City. The platform has been running stable for 9 months. 10 strategic partners, about 2.8 million euros of funding so far. As I mentioned, it's all bootstrapped. And the target market that we're looking at in the carbon space is around $185 billion by 2030. And the retail market that we're targeting is about $29 trillion in 2019. So to close up, what I like to say is that we are facing a big existential threat with climate change, and we think that we only understand the tip of the iceberg so far. There's been a lot of analysis into the carbon footprint and greenhouse gas emissions, but we're really not looked deeply enough into freshwater, plastic, and other environmental capital that we're destroying. But what we really believe is that we're at a point where we, for the first time, have the technology and the understanding globally to really make a difference. And we think that if we work together, we can still make this right, and we can still save the planet. Thank you. Thank you. We have a bit of time for questions, not much. As, I know I'm terrible. I can talk for hours about this. So please. Do we have a second mic? Okay, all right.
Hi, Laszlo. Thanks a lot for, is it working? Okay. So thanks a lot for the presentation and saving the trees. You'd mentioned that you've saved roughly 20 million trees till date. Is that correct?
Yes.
If these trees were cut down, how much wood or how much material would they produce? Roughly how many tons, do you think?
So I don't know what the material would be in terms of building materials. That's difficult to say. I know that the 20 million trees inhabited an area which is about 24% larger than New York City. So it's basically, if you've ever been to New York, the whole of New York City, fill that with trees. That's what we stopped from cutting down.
So basically the core of my question is, so basically the dynamic of supply and the demand in the market is the same. If there was a lot of material, which is wood, if only wood is needed to either for building material or for other finishings, where did all that wood come from? Given that we've not actually changed the dynamics of supply and demand, do you think?
Okay, so I just need to correct one misunderstanding there, and it's a very big misunderstanding that a lot of people have around the world. Deforestation, a very, 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 very small part of deforestation comes from the practice of cutting trees and using them as building materials. The vast majority of deforestation is where people do illegal mining, or they build palm oil plantations. And palm oil plantations, they basically destroy the topsoil in an area, and you can never grow anything there again unless you spend a lot of money repairing it. And palm oil plantations, basically, they go from season to season to another place. And if you're looking at the Amazon, there are patches of desert where palm oil plantations used to be. None of that wood is used by anyone. They cut it and they burn it. If you cut trees and you build beautiful furniture out of it, or houses or whatever, that actually is not that bad for the environment. Of course, it's great if we don't cut trees at all and if we use bamboo. I'm a huge fan of bamboo or other materials, not plastic, of course. But the problem for global warming, greenhouse gas emissions, is cutting the trees and burning them. Even worse, actually, cutting trees and letting them rot, because then we have methane and other gases that are being emitted that are actually worse than carbon. But cutting trees to actually use the wood is not really something we're concerned about.
Thank you.
Okay. There was a question here in front. The lady here. Yeah. Lady in pink was first to jump up.
Thank you for the very insightful talk. One thing that I'm concerned with is that it takes a lot of electricity to mine cryptocurrencies, right? So, yes, is the electricity that you're using green certified, and does it, you probably have the answer to this.
No, I'm happy you asked that, because as I said earlier, I didn't go so much into the technology, but I love to answer any technology questions. We did a very detailed analysis of all the blockchain technologies out there. So we didn't start with, hey, let's build a blockchain company. Like a lot out there, they wake up in one day and say like, wow, so much money in cryptocurrency, I want to do that too. We didn't start with blockchain. We started with a desire to save the planet. Then we found carbon credits, and we found forest conservation, and we found coastal ecosystems, and so on and so on. And we said we need a solution to optimize and revolutionize current carbon markets. We found out that technology is required. We did further analysis. We found out blockchain is the right one. When we found blockchain, we then analyzed all the various blockchain platforms. And we chose Stellar because Stellar is actually the most environmental friendly blockchain out there. The environmental footprint, or the carbon footprint of one Stellar transaction is a fraction of that of a Visa transaction. The problem is not blockchain as a technology. The problem is something that's called a consensus method, and the consensus methodology of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and any cryptocurrency that requires, I like to call them digital assets, that's why, but every cryptocurrency that requires mining, that is the problem. So we have chosen Stellar because they were environmentally friendly. They're one of the fastest, 3 seconds is insane for a transaction. The cost was very low. And also, the guys that run Stellar are superstars. They have founded Stellar as a non-profit with the clear goal of addressing social problems, so bringing banking to the unbanked. So they're very aligned with us. But to, again, address your question, there's no environmental concern with our blockchain.
Okay, thank you so much. Great.
Thank you. My name is Marius. Fantastic presentation and very motivating. Short question. As you gain success and generate more and more transactions, you'll have a pool of funds to donate to these activities for conservation. Do you anticipate at some point a limitation on that side of the network, the ability to actually find sufficient conservation efforts and people in particular that you know, spend their time saving the planet, right? Because money is one thing, but the other thing is actually the manpower to be able to execute on that.
Very good questions. So first of all, if we get to the point that we stop deforestation globally, I think I'm going to go to a beach and have a drink first. But I absolutely hope that we'll get to that point. I actually hope that Poseidon makes the carbon market obsolete. Then we were successful. If we get to a point that there is no carbon credit project anymore because all the forests are now protected and all the coastal ecosystems are protected, we've done our job right. Of course, how do we ensure that we continue to exist? Because obviously we have many, many ambitions. As I said, we're looking beyond carbon footprints. We're looking at plastic, we're looking at electricity, we're looking at fresh water. So there's many different projects that will keep us busy for a very, very long time. But we're also going to use part of the money to be active in research and development, to make sure that we develop technologies that are environmentally friendly. So BAC, that supercar manufacturer, is not only a client of us, they're also a strategic partner. And they're a strategic partner because we already have a pipeline of projects in the transportation industry that are going to be more environmentally friendly in the electric car space, but also in other areas. So running environmentally conscious projects is one thing. We're going to do social projects as well, and we're going to be active in research and development.
I echo what everyone else is saying. Fantastic presentation. But I was intrigued. I come from New Zealand, okay? So there's a lot of largest dairy farm in the world, dairy products and such. Not a lot of forests. The only trees we're chopping down are the ones we're building houses with. But the cows are so flatulent and all that kind of stuff, and the methane, and there's no trees. You know, dairy farms have huge footprints. How does that work?
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Actually, deforestation, as I said, is about 20% of the carbon footprint. 20% of the greenhouse gas emissions come from deforestation, and some sources say 15%, so it depends on which scientific source you read. Definitely agriculture is a very big part of that. So whether you have farming, whether you have livestock, all of that, the food production causes a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. We also have energy creation, we have transportation, we have cities. Cities are a major carbon footprint. Actually, almost the vast majority, actually, almost all the carbon footprint comes because of cities, indirectly and directly. And there are many different areas that need to be addressed. I totally agree with you. And there are many amazing companies that work on various aspects of addressing greenhouse gas emissions. I mentioned earlier that there are some companies that work on carbon capture. How can we get the carbon that went into the atmosphere out again? Those are really important causes. For us, it was important to find one area we can focus on and one area we can scale. And that has been deforestation. So we're focusing on deforestation now. And then, as I said, on coastal ecosystems. I wouldn't rule out that we're going to start looking into agriculture and other areas in the future as well. But it's not on our roadmap at the moment. Sorry, I don't have the microphone.
Because you mentioned something about even renewable energy companies, they also have like a carbon footprint.
Yes, absolutely.
Can you elaborate more about that? Because originally I was in the coal industry, you do mining and stuff like that. So actually I went into solar and wind turbine and biogas, biomass. Yeah.
So moving from burning coal to nuclear or wind or solar are all great initiatives, and they're very, very important. But as you said, they also have a carbon footprint. They're much, much better, but they have a carbon footprint. And the carbon footprint typically comes from building the power plant. So when you're building a wind farm, there's a carbon footprint in creating those beautiful big, or well, some people don't like them. It's debatable, let's say. I like offshore wind farms anyway. So these big propellers in the water and in the air, they need material. They need energy to create, use a lot of fresh water as well. So there's definitely an environmental footprint there as well. And just generally, I think the simple way to look at humanity and our impact on the environment is there's very few things that we do that don't have a negative impact on the environment.
I'm thinking out aloud, and I've thought of 3 uses that could potentially add a lot of social impact value. One is travel. For example, we jump on a plane very easily, and I imagine if you can work with airlines. Yeah. Another one is cruise ships, again, very big ticket item, and potentially hotel chains. Are they among your 25 clients that you're working with?
Yes, yes, it's actually, so Liverpool City Council has introduced us to Liverpool Airport. They're actually part of the owners of the airport in Liverpool. So we're talking with airlines. Actually, even before airlines, because what causes the carbon footprint of a flight is not the plane itself. It's mainly the fuel that you're burning. So as I said, we're talking to petrochemicals at the moment. So we're going the step before. So we're talking with them. And we're talking with 4 hotel groups, international hotel groups, one of them here in Singapore, actually. We're talking with almost every industry, actually. We're getting overrun. If we had more money, we would quickly have hundreds of clients, because we're getting calls and emails every day.
Yeah, so my question is about the technology. You had mentioned, of course, it's blockchain based. I hear a lot of discussion about different blockchain solutions. So I guess it's 2 parts. One, is there some aspects that are, and maybe you can describe how, better served by blockchain than some other existing traditional technology? And 2, is there some aspects of your business or what you're doing that simply could not happen if you didn't have blockchain?
Great question. Absolutely, and I love that. And before I answer that, I go just one step back. Blockchain is not the holy grail. A lot of startups that begin in the blockchain world think that blockchain is going to change the entire planet and it's going to save us all from doomsday. And that's not the way it works. Blockchain is a technology that can be applied to specific issues, so exactly the way you said it. We collect customer data. We collect transaction data. We collect details about people that participate in our fundraiser, that give us money, where we do KYC and AML. None of that has a place on blockchain. Even before GDPR, this European idea about you can remove all your personal information from online sources, even before that, privacy is a big concern. Regulatory requirements change from country to country. It's a war zone when you're getting into data. If you put that onto blockchain, you're very quickly getting into legal issues that you won't be able to address. We have to keep a lot of what we're doing outside of the blockchain. Blockchain is a data storage that is great when you need fast processing. You need, well, I need to be careful there. Fast processing that is distributed globally. Because if you have a really good database on a local computer, that is way faster than a blockchain could ever be, right? But if you want to make data available to people around the world in a way that there is consensus about the updates you're making, so we can be sure that what we're writing on the blockchain is correct with all the checks we're having, then blockchain is good. Blockchain is good where you want to make sure that people cannot alter data, right? We all know the stories about banks that were a little bit cooking their books, or companies cooking their books a little bit. On blockchain, you can't do that. One of the big issues in philanthropy, but especially in carbon markets, is that people purchase carbon credits or people purchase other products, and there is a lack of trust that what they have done actually happened. In philanthropy, you give money to a philanthropy, and I think most people, including myself, I think that probably around 30–40% or so of the money disappears and doesn't go where I want it to go. And the money that I gave to a philanthropic organization in order to help children somewhere in Africa might have turned up somewhere else. Well, probably also for a good cause, but not exactly where I wanted it. With blockchain, we can ensure that we transparently prove to contributors that money goes exactly where we told them it goes. We can show them that the carbon credits are used in the right way. So in short, to answer your question, wherever you need traceability, transparency, immutability, and global access to your data, blockchain is great. Wherever you need privacy and wherever you need to localize or regionalize the way you deal with data, blockchain is a bad idea.
Thank you.
You're going to tell us why Poseidon and why ocean token.
Aha. Okay. So I kind of went into that direction already. So just from a carbon point of view, 80% of all the carbon sequestration happens in the oceans. So we see this, the water is where life started. We all ultimately come out of the sea. And interestingly, the solution to our further existence is also in the water. So if we're addressing carbon sequestration and plastic and energy and all the other environmental issues that we're having in the oceans, I'm not saying that we can solve everything, but we can make a very large contribution towards ensuring a more holistic way of living and a coexistence that is going to be more future-proof than what we have right now. So that's why we chose Poseidon as a name. And that's why we called our tokens Ocean.
Hi, this is my second question. I was just trying to put things together. So as I understand, you mentioned that what is effectively is happening, that we are collecting money from consumers in the form of donations, which is very transparent to them into how it's used. And then we're using that money to train local communities who live in forests into alternate ways of livelihood, which does not involve deforestation. Is that a correct summary of how, like a very aerial view summary of how we are preventing deforestation?
Yes, no, it's an absolute, that's exactly how it is. So I say it in a different way. So in order to be able to do this real-time accounting and the real-time, almost immediate addressing of social and environmental costs at the point of sale, we actually purchase the carbon credits up front. So this is also very important for us, and that's why also we have these highly certified carbon credits. The carbon credits that we purchased and that we put onto our blockchain, they already had an impact. So it's not like we're getting micro contributions from people around the world and then we're trying to do something with it. We already did something, and then we use that money to then buy more carbon credits. That's why we're doing a fundraiser. 80% of all the funds that we're collecting are used to purchase carbon credits. We put them onto a blockchain, then we sell them in retail, and we use the money we collect to buy more carbon credits. So we're calling that the circular impact investment model. And before the carbon credits, you obviously have these projects on the ground. So you have people that live wherever in a rainforest, and they want to earn money. At the moment, all they get is offers from palm oil plantations, illegal mining, and other organizations want to destroy their forest, or people trying to build roads. Brazil, very big problem. The new president just signed off a couple of things and said that they're going to build lots of roads through the Amazon. That is a real problem. So we go to the local communities and we tell them, we give you an alternative. Because it's the only way you can address these kind of issues that happen is if you go to the source, if you go to the cause of the deforestation, and that clearly is these local communities cutting it down. So we give them an alternative, we teach them how to grow other produce that actually requires the forest in order to grow better. And then we're using the carbon credits that come from these projects to put on our platform. We integrate them with the retail sector and corporates and governments, and then the retail revenue we have from that is used to then support further projects.
The activities which are causing majority of the...
I can't hear you because, excuse me. Thank you.
The kind of activities that seem to be causing the deforestation, such as mining and large-scale palm tree plantation, it sounds like, I mean, a kind of an act of people who are powerful, in the sense maybe corporates, or, I mean, because the nature of the activities on a scale suggests that there are also big forces behind it. So is that, I mean, 20 million trees, so how many people, I mean, is that information that you'd not like to share, or?
I don't understand the question.
So I'm saying that the scale of activities that we're talking about, mining or illegal palm tree plantation, it seems like basically activities which only organized big corporations could carry out, when basically, because these require machines and basically very organized ways to drill down forests. It needs bulldozers, stuff like that. Humans can't cut down 20 million trees. Like, it would require a lot of crazy amount of people to do that. So it sounds like an organized effort which is backed by powerful organizations in some manner. I'm sure machines are used to cut down trees, right? 20 million trees is a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
So my question is that, is that a part of the problem?
No, I understand the question, but I'd like to answer it in a slightly different way. I want to talk about accountability and responsibility. Yes, those trees are being cut down by corporations, and yes, they're actually cutting down billions of trees every year. We've lost almost half of all the rainforests over the last few decades. It's really painful. And yes, we could all sit down and point fingers at these big bad corporations for doing that, like many people point fingers at Donald Trump for doing what he does. But let's just be very clear here. Donald Trump is where he is because people voted for him. Corporations cut down trees because we buy products with palm oil. So it's a responsibility everybody has. Now, we are not going to change that overnight. Yes, if everybody in the world would stop driving cars and using planes, and all we're going to do now is walk around, we would reduce greenhouse gas emissions tremendously. Is that realistic? No, it's not going to happen. No way on earth. Never. You can maybe get people to not use the car to drive 2 meters down the road to buy a newspaper. Yes, but you're not going to stop them from taking the car to go shopping to buy 3 bags of food for their family. This is not going to happen. It's not realistic. So you have to be realistic in the solutions, and clearly we have to look long-term and short-term. Long-term, we must absolutely change the way we exist. We absolutely have to replace every car with an electric car, or maybe even a new technology. I don't know, maybe somebody comes up with something else that's cooler than electricity. But we have to change, but it's not going to change now. It's not going to change in the next 10 years. It's not going to change in the next 20 years. It's just not realistic. So we have to find ways of addressing the problem we have today with solutions that are realistic today. And that's what we do at Poseidon.
Thanks for the presentation. If I understand you correctly, you are basically fractionalizing the carbon credit and selling it, in a sense, from wholesale to retail. So in that sense, are you driving donations, or are you actually selling an asset? That's point one. Point two, given your talk about accountability, which I fully agree, and you mentioned a 12-year window. So from your perspective, in terms of your organization's own plan and target, what sort of scale do you need to operate at in order to make a difference in terms of the impact to, say, prevent 44.5 degrees or going up to just 1 degree or whatever? Thanks.
I wish I could answer that in a more positive way, but unfortunately, ignorance is bliss, right? The days I didn't understand climate change were really happy days, when I played computer games and everything was fine. Now I read about climate change and about science, and I speak with scientists every single day. And unfortunately, we've brought the environment to a point that it's unrealistic to say that we will not have any effects from climate change. We are rendering large parts of the world inhabitable over the next 10, 20 years. That's happening. Sea levels are rising. There's going to be food shortages. We've depleted soil that is required to produce food to a level that what is produced now has a much lower nutritional value. Over the next few decades, life globally will change. What we can do is we can soften the blow. We can do as much as we can to help the planet as much as possible to ensure that climate change will not result in wiping us out. The planet will be fine. Also, a few people say that, oh, we have to save the planet. It's like, that's not really true. The planet is going to be here in a few billion years. Whether we're going to be here, that's a different question, right? Because the planet has done that before. They got rid of a species, and then after a while a new species came, right? I mean, in the grand scheme of time, we've been here for seconds, right? If you look at the life of planet Earth as one day, then we've been here for seconds. It's nothing. What we are fighting for is an environment that supports human life. Now, the way we need to scale, as I said earlier, the global retail market is around $29 trillion. If we capture about 2-3% of that retail market, we can stop deforestation globally. So we're looking at around 600 to 800 billion dollars of retail volume, and from that 600 to 800 billion dollars of retail volume, we would basically capture somewhere around 0.5 to 1%, maybe 2% in micro contributions. So we're talking in about billions of dollars per year to have an impact. Those are big numbers, but the way this will work is scalability. Oh, I'm sorry, what was the first one again?
Whether you are basically taking something from wholesale market and doing that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we're purchasing carbon credits in millions of tons, And obviously we're getting a price that is much lower than the price we're selling them at in the retail market. However, we have different economies within Poseidon. We have an internal economy, which is a non-profit. Actually, we have a Poseidon Foundation, and the Poseidon Foundation is also a registered charity. And all the funds that come from the retail sales go in there, and we're using the vast majority of that to do further social and environmental good. So our circular impact investment model works actually in a way that we buy carbon credits at the wholesale price, we're selling them at the retail price, and we expect that with every iteration we can buy 50% more carbon credits. So ultimately, if we have a successful fundraiser now, with it seems like we are having, then we'll be able to organically grow and increase our reach that way.
I think that it's a great idea. I'm a fan, new fan.
Thank you.
What I'm struggling with is the ambition, because I think where you need to go is like Amazon, right? You need to basically have people realize their environmental footprint in every purchase. You almost need to have a partner in government that mandates all retailers to display the environmental impact.
Absolutely.
So in that way, I'm a bit struggling with your initial set of customers and clients and partners, because they are so tiny and the ambition needs to be so huge. The other thing I struggle with is the actual impact it has on a consumer. If I can, for a fraction of a cent, pay off the cost for my environmental impact on ice cream, I don't really tend to think about it. So how am I going to change my behavior, which is where we need to go, if I can pay off, for a couple cents? So in that sense, let's think it through. If Amazon partners with you and people see, oh, this costs 10 cents more than if I go to my shop, this donation, they might actually start shopping with another retailer, and then Amazon is going to leave you as a client. So I feel like there is a big story there where you can add ambition, and maybe I'll join your team and work with government or whatever. But there's a passionate thing there that you can build on, but I think go higher and further.
I totally agree with you, and you can definitely give us your card later on if you want to join us. We always like to have more people that are passionate about it. So your first question about the market size and the targets we're having. I have sent emails to Jeff, but he didn't write back to me. I think he's busy with his divorce. But if we would get Amazon, that is actually 2 to 3% of the global retail market. If we would have Amazon as a customer, and my suggestion to Jeff would be, you know what, let's at the first step only offset the transportation. That would be like the easiest integration. Then we do all the products. That's a bit more complicated because we need to do the carbon footprint analysis of every single product, which our AI will do once it's ready. But at the beginning, it's a bit more complicated. But anyway, we could probably start with just saying, okay, 0.2% of on top of each purchase. There would be ways, and we would absolutely love to do that. The reason we're not doing that is twofold. First, we don't yet have those contacts. If you can introduce me to Jeff, I'll love to fly over and have dinner with him. We don't have those contacts yet. Our reach is growing with every news that we're putting out, with every success story that we have. We're getting bigger and bigger clients. Liverpool City Council definitely was a very big success. We're now, since we worked with Liverpool City Council, we've been invited to speak at UN World City Day. There we've been approached by a city in China that wants to work with us, a very major city, I just can't say the name. We've been approached by a country in the Middle East. We've been approached by 2 other cities in the UK. So we're getting more and more reach. So the way we feel this will work is that it will grow organically, and eventually, definitely, we want to have Walmart as a customer. We want to have Singapore Airlines as a customer. We want to have governments, corporates, everybody as a customer, definitely. Now, the other reason why we're not scaling to them yet is also financial. as I said, we're 12 people working full-time. We're about 40 people on contract basis that work if and when required. We need hundreds of people, and we need people globally. We're doing the fundraiser at the moment to get to a stage that we can scale, because we have a pipeline. We have a pipeline of over 25 clients that would love to integrate today. And we're just slowing the progress because we're going client by client as fast as we can do it at the moment. And communication is a big part of that as well. We have a big branding and communication team because, as you said rightly, you have to communicate it to the consumer in the right way to get the passion and to get the interest. If you just do it like a tax and you say, hey, you have to pay a little bit more, people will go somewhere else. But if you have two coffee shops and one coffee shop offers it and has the right messaging around it, you actually get more customers going to that coffee shop if you package it the right way, right? So what we definitely don't want to do, and I mentioned that in my speech, and that goes to your second concern, what we definitely don't want to do is create a model like the church did with the absolution, where you can go and kill people and then you give some money to the church and then it was fine and you're still going to get to heaven. That doesn't work, of course not. But if you like to go to the gym and you want to have a little bit more protein into your diet, what you do? You maybe after the gym you eat a protein bar. But how do you decide which protein bar to take? You look at the ingredients and now you see, okay, the nutritional value and the protein grams per bar, and you choose the one that has more protein maybe, or the one that has less sugar, depending on what your preferences are. That is missing at the moment. When you're going to a shop today and you see two t-shirts that look the same, you don't know which one of those two t-shirts has a lower environmental impact. And that is an effect that our pricing will have on top as well. Because if you're seeing that the one product will cost 2 pennies more or 2 cents more to offset the environmental impact, the other one will cost 3 cents more to offset the environmental impact, you might just say, hey, I like them both the same, I'll take the one, not because it's cheaper, but due to the price difference, I see that that's actually better for the environment. So information is the key. You have to give people data so that they can make intelligent decisions. You cannot choose what to buy and how to get from A to B if you don't understand what the environmental impact is. And that is education, and also spreading this knowledge is a very big part of what we do.
So thanks everyone. We perhaps always want to have some little time at the end of the event for everyone to just staying back and mingle. And of course, Laszlo and Cesare will also be staying with us. So maybe we just have time for one question before we end the session. Laszlo?
Thank you for this case. I'm curious about, like, right now it seems like the retail is a big part, play a very big part of the role in driving the project going forward. If you think that from their perspective, from a manufacturer's perspective, because most of the product we see in the market is mass product, right? So there is a price sensitivities on it. And also, so for those manufacturers, they have larger carbon footprint, means they might need to, for example, if I have 2 t-shirts, one t-shirt, same price, one t-shirt I need to pay $2 for the carbon credit. Cents. And then, 2 cents. The other one I need to pay 10 cents. So from a competition perspective, the one who charge more on the carbon footprint is going to lose the competitive advantage, right? So it's a good thing, but on the other hand, they won't use your product. So how do you tackle this challenge?
Luckily, it's not a problem we need to tackle because it tackles itself. So what's happening is that consumers more and more demand to see these kind of information or this kind of data. Investors and shareholders put pressure on companies to disclose their environmental impact. Of course, it's much better for a company to hide it and to not say it. Of course, it's much better for Coca-Cola not to tell you how much sugar and how many calories are in their drink. It's much better if you don't know that and you continue drinking it. When some countries have put sugar tax on, or they're pressuring companies to disclose the nutritional value of what they have. Two things happen. First, they lose business, and then they change. And then they make business the right way. I like one thing. I'm very, very passionate about holistic health. So people who know me, I know I'm a total pain. When I go into a restaurant, I never order exactly what's on the menu. I annoy the hell out of them by changing things around to make it healthy. At home, everything is organic. Everything at home is, I don't like synthetic substances. I'm really terrible to be around with, to be with. But, you know, the thing is, I don't buy products where I look at the ingredients and there's something I can't pronounce or I don't know what it is. If I buy a shampoo and it says some chemical things I never heard of, I just don't buy it. Because I want to have the knowledge and I want to have the understanding. And consumers are more and more going into that direction. Shareholders actually divest. They move money out of industries that have an environmental impact and put money into industries that don't. But there were Nordic countries or the countries in Europe where the sovereign wealth funds has completely moved out of fossil fuels and moved somewhere else. You have very large powers, and it's mainly investments and shareholders, but also people looking for employment. More and more skilled labor doesn't want to work for companies that ruin the environment. So the pressure actually comes from the consumers to disclose the information. So what we're actually doing is we're helping consumers and we're helping companies to engage with consumers that want to have this information. And this engagement actually wins them more customers. It's actually less a problem if you're a petrochemical that pollutes the environment, if you then do something about it and you're open about it. It's a much bigger problem if you're being quiet about it, trying to hide it and not tell anybody around it. If you're taking responsibility and you go to your consumers and you say, like, we know when we built this bicycle, we have this and this environmental impact. And right now we can't change it, but this is our plan. Next few years we're changing this and this into bamboo, we're changing this and this. And you show your consumers, hey, we're really working on becoming environmentally friendly. And until then, we're today working with Poseidon to offset the environmental impact. Then what you get is an engagement with your consumers, and you're actually getting more consumers, because really that is what people want today. They want information, they want accountability, and they want to be part of the solution. Okay, I think that was it. So thank you very much for staying this long. Thank you. I hope there's enough water for